Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon as we start our
Hey,
sixth installment of our Godfather discussion. Hi, Thindu, how are you?
hello everyone. Everyone in the chat.
And we have a special guest today who's filling in for Tommy Stiggs, who couldn't make it. Brooklyn guy, Vinny Brocky. Thank you for joining us,
Hey,
Vinny.
lovely
You're very
clap
welcome.
from Vinny.
You're very welcome.
I
Thanks,
clap, he barks. Jesus.
What's
You got
Vito's?
you got two welcomes.
What's Vito's opinion of the Godfather? Does he like it or what? What do you?
Oh, absolutely. He's a maid dog, so he loves
Mhm.
it.
All right, so today we are at the point in the film where I'm calling it the hospital scene, but it really starts. Well, actually, you know what? Before I get into this, let me just say hello to whoever's in the chat real quick so that we acknowledge those that are here. I see TT Brad. Thank you for joining, my friend. Big Bones, Bambi. I see Patty. I see Arlene Morlino. Salvatore in the house. Todd Father's listening while he drives.
All right.
We got a bunch. We got a good crowd hit off.
You have usual suspects here. All right.
Exactly, we do. So the scene that we're talking about today starts off. I call it the hospital scene, but it really starts off back at the Corleone compound when Michael is there. There's a whole bunch of people there, and Clemenza is cooking dinner. He's cooking sauce, right?
So
And he calls over Michael and he says, "Come here, kid. Let me show you what I'm doing here. You might have to cook for a bunch of people, a bunch of guys one day." And to me, that scene right there reminded me of when I was a kid. Whenever somebody would die in the family, that scene would be happening at my grandmother's house. Somebody would be in the kitchen with the big vat cooking stuff. There's people moving in and out all over the kitchen, in and out all over the place. Do you guys have similar experiences with that?
I'm on
yeah,
it.
absolutely. It always reminds me of Dom DeLuise and what is it, Fatso?
Well,
When his
Fatso.
mama dies and he's over, Mama, making a thing of sauce. That'll be themed.
Yeah.
You know what I thought when I saw that scene? Now I think differently out of the box. Maybe it's the bipolar. Maybe I'm just nuts. My first thought, not first thought when I first saw the movie, after a while, well, where was Tessio?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting.
And if you go back, it's interesting before that when James Caan calls Clemenza and says, "No, I don't want any of Tessio's men." Clemenza. I think he thought Tessio could have been the traitor at that point.
Yeah, you're right.
No, it's
Ben.
actually wait, hold on, Vin. It's actually the opposite. He says he calls Tessio and says, "I'm not going to use any of Clemenza's men because Paulie."
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I got
Paulie
right,
worked for Clemenza.
I got it wrong, and I always thought that was odd.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you've got me now. Okay.
And then if you go to the book said that Vito never wanted Tessio and Clemenza hanging out together.
Yes.
He
Right.
wanted those guys separate so you could never coup them.
Mhm.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
And
That's
I
great.
always, I'm sorry, I
Go
always
ahead,
said
Tito.
Clemenza was more the street type killer, and Tessio was always above Clemenza. Is a little classier.
Tessio was the thinker. Tessio was
Yeah.
the smarter of the two. He was the thinker.
Right. The brains and the muscles. What I
Yeah.
want to
Right.
say. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. The business end, probably.
Yep. He was more like the union representative, and
Yeah.
and then Clemenza was in, for the picket lines with the baseball bat,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
You know what was interesting? Someone told me who was close to one of the screenwriters, a child of the screenwriter, that only a few days before filming, the actor that played Clemenza wanted his playwright friend to write all his lines, so they didn't have it. The Patangeli role was actually Clemenza. They
I heard
didn't
that too.
change it at all.
Yes.
That was supposed to be Clemenza,
Yep.
who would have turned eventually and all that.
Right. I did hear that. The same thing. And that's very interesting because as a result of that, Pantangeli is a fabulous character into like, and if that didn't happen, we would have never had Pantangeli. You would never know who Pantangeli was.
Right. And you know why you would think that? Because why would someone have access to take over the old Don's house other than a Clemenza?
Yeah,
I
right.
would Frank Pantangeli, if he was just a street captain, take a house like that. That would be given like rite of passage.
Yeah.
So that would make sense that Clemenza would get the old home, or if he wanted to take over it.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And they basically kill him off, right?
Mhm.
That's not in the book. That's not in the book. They kill off Clemenza, say, and they give you the idea that it's maybe it was the Rosados. They give you that idea, but but that was not in the book at all.
Well, they said it was a heart attack. Don't you remember? And Willie
Mhm.
Chichi said it wasn't a heart attack.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right. So, Clemenza does his thing, and Sonny comes in and says, "Cut the bullshit. I got more important things for you to do." And it's really a setup for Michael, because Michael wants to go and visit Kay, because remember, Kay is still at the hotel room. He didn't tell anybody that Kay's there. That was the big thing. He didn't tell her that he was there. Now, to me, this represents the dichotomy of Michael. He's got two worlds here. Right now, he's in the old world, and he's reaching out to go back to the new world, which is where he thought he was heading. He thought he was heading to a life with Kay, outside of the family, completely outside of,
almost defiant of the family, even a WASP girlfriend, just everything opposite of what that family was.
Yeah,
absolutely. And in the book, they tell you it was actually Dartmouth that he went to. Michael went to Dartmouth,
okay,
yes,
which is an Ivy League school. He was going to in Connecticut, no less. In Connecticut, it's a totally different world. Totally different world. So Michael goes to visit Kay in the hospital. I mean, I'm sorry, not in the hotel room, and they send men with him. Right? He says, "Well, don't worry about it. They don't need men." And Sonny says, "Well, send them anyway." And then you see the scene with him and the two guys in the car. So that's the precursor to what ultimately is the real scene here, which is the hospital. So after he visits Kay, he goes to the hospital. Now, the book tells us he gets there at 10:30 at night, well past visiting hours.
Mm-hmm.
And as we see as he walks in, there's nobody around. There's the record player spinning, skipping, because nobody took it off. Right. In the sense that it was abruptly, everybody was pushed out the door. Now that hospital, I don't know where that hospital was. I don't know if you guys know where it was. I didn't ever find
that
out.
Was it Bellevue? It was the old wing. It might have been Bellevue.
Okay.
It was the old wing, though. It had been closed since.
Mm-hmm.
The old entrance. Whatever, I don't know. Whatever hospital was in Manhattan. It was Bellevue in Manhattan. Then it was Bellevue.
Yeah.
Whatever one it was. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what.
And just that scene of the hospital, you got the big stairs going up to the front, and then you have the Christmas lights dangling across the thing. And it reminds me of such an old world feel to it, Christmas time in the neighborhood, so to speak. But the dank, dark nature of that hospital, you could tell it's really old. It's really impersonal, very cold. And it really sets up the scene on how it gives you the impression that it's vacant, that you feel it. You feel the loneliness that the Don is there by himself. There's nobody there but an attending nurse. Everybody else is gone.
It's an eerie feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very eerie feeling at a hospital when it should be a comfortable feeling. It's an eerie feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too how, like Anthony said, this is a guy that always had people around him, who was always part of the life, and now he seems very isolated, like it's him against the world, where it always seemed like everyone was with him, and now, like you said, Anthony, he's isolated, and it's like, where is his strength? All
his
the strength
power's gone.
Or in the beginning, he's powerless, like you or I, if we're laying there, and that's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's just another civilian. No,
right?
That's it.
No
Yeah.
power.
He's just a civilian in that hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is an interesting point that I didn't pick up until I read the book. When Michael gets there and he panics, right? He sees nobody's there and he calls Sonny. He says, "There's nobody here, no Tessio's men." Now, Tessio's men are there. It's Tessio that's watching The Godfather. It's Tessio's crew. Still not Clemenza. Still not Clemenza. And he says, "No detectives." Now, those detectives were police detectives that were assigned to protect the Don. They were actual police detectives. I never picked up on that in the movies. I thought they were the detectives that the family had hired, like private detectives.
Right.
Real fast. Edwin said that was the old Lincoln
In the
Hospital
Bronx?
in South
Oh, really?
Bronx.
In the Bronx.
Thank you,
wow.
Edwin. Thank
Okay.
you. That was
Thanks,
wrong.
Edwin.
Yeah. Thank
Edwin
you.
don't miss a trick when it's
Mhm.
down there in the Bronx.
No, that's where he was born, right? He was born in the Bronx. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Edwin.
Yeah. Thanks, Sir Edwin. I'm sorry, Ale.
No, that's fine. No, that's a good point. So think about that. The police were assigned to protect him, and those two detectives were gone. So, and we find out why. We find out why that happened. But that to me was always a nuance that I never picked up on. I just assumed it was family detective, private detectives that the family hired. So, yeah, he calls Sonny, and Sonny says, "Don't worry, we'll get people down there." And so at that point, he knows this is also part of the character development of Michael in the sense that he instinctively knows he has to do something here. He's in the moment. He knows he has to do something to protect his father. He knows something's wrong. Everybody's gone. He's got to do what the minimum thing is, at least move him to a different room so that whoever's coming for him might go, it'll slow them down. They'll go to the wrong room. Who knows? So it's Michael's street instincts coming out. The Ivy League is fading away, and the street instincts are coming out here.
Well, they always. I don't know if it was the book or people thought Michael was most like his father. He wasn't like Michael was very tough. He used to fight those kids. He was the youngest. They beat him up. He'd fight them back. He was much like his father. And there was a scene taken out. There were so many great scenes taken out of the original or supposed. When Apollonia gets killed, he took a little while to get better. It just wasn't after a couple of days. He supposedly was there about 2 years, and he leaned over to the Don, who he was under protection at the time, after we found out that Santino was killed, and he said, "Tell my father I'm ready to be his son now."
Yeah. Well, they don't realize how bitter and ruthless Sicily really made Michael when he had to stay there.
Yeah.
Think about it. Just like Vinny said, as soon as he picked up that phone, I'm ready to be with my father. He already said it in plain sight what he was going to do when he got back. So
yes, absolutely. And one of the greatest scenes, Anthony, because we've all seen this a million times, the best scene in this movie, and I know we're doing a hospital scene, but I wanted your opinion on this. When they're in the courtyard for Godfather 2 and before the father dies, and they're talking, I always wanted you to be Senator Corleone. There was about a minute erased from the beginning when they're walking into that courtyard, where Michael looks at his father, says, "What about Apollonia? What about Santino? They're going to take it as a sign of weakness." His father looks at him and says, "It is a sign of weakness." He said, "I gave my promise." Michael said, "I never did." So Corleone says, "We have plenty of time to talk about that now." He puts his arm around them. Then that would go to the next scene. So I always thought that wasn't totally Michael didn't plan the execution of those. That was his father with him, because his father knew that once he died and his health was failing, that they were going to wipe out the whole family. And I really believe Michael, the guidance was to plan that with his father. I don't think they wanted to show that in the movie because it would lose the sense that Michael became this big brash, it would look like he still needed help, that he was weak.
Yeah.
And interesting thing that they put out of there, though, that they wanted you to, it was all Michael that did this, but it wasn't. His father.
No, that's intriguing. That is.
And then they couldn't set up that last 5 killing scene if they would have planned it like Vinny would have said.
Right.
It wouldn't have,
Oh yeah, it wouldn't be a
it wouldn't
surprise.
have came
Yeah,
up for that nice
yeah.
five,
Right.
scene
Right.
at the end of the movie. You
Right.
know?
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. That's a good point.
Yeah. If they would have gave you
Mhm.
the blueprint of him and his father planning this and that,
You know it was
that
coming.
would have eliminated the whole
Yeah,
end of
that's
that
a great
movie
point.
Yeah.
on us guessing who put that together.
Right. Right.
That's a great point.
You know, and there were so many scenes shot that were pulled out of that film, and for different reasons, right? Some were pulled out just because you can't have a 9-hour film. Others are because of this. You know, that probably was a defined decision. We got to get this out because we don't want to tip people off. We don't want it. You know,
Right.
we want to make sure we want Michael to feel like we want Michael, the audience, to feel that Michael has gotten more bigger, quicker, or faster.
Right.
You know, so
he's evolved into the boss. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, that's good. That's a good point.
Everything with Michael was patience and years of making.
Yes.
Think about it. Everything was. All his revenge was years, decades of making. You know.
But there are a couple of things that make you think. Like I can't imagine they didn't think that Carlos set up Santino. And would Michael allow him around the family 10 years if he really thought that was a problem? You know, they had an inkling that he did it, and 10 years passed until the time that they killed Carlo in 58. So why would you keep him around when he set up your brother and you could be next? That's the only thing I don't think was real in that movie. There's no way if you took Carlo hit Sonny that you'd let him around and get him close to you for 10 years. I don't think
right. And that's a good point, but I would say, here's what I'd offer to that is that there was a certain amount of years where, remember, Sonny gets killed. Michael is in Sicily, and he's still in Sicily for a while, right? And then the Don is retired or semi-retired.
About 49, I think he was in Sicily. I think he came back 49 or 50.
He's semi-retired, you know, and when Michael comes back, my thought is the Don is probably saying, leave it alone. If it's brought up, I don't want to disturb anything.
Okay.
You got to
probably
remember
waiting. Michael's probably waiting for the Don to die, much like he waits for his mother to die in Godfather 2.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah.
You know.
Now you got to remember, what did I just say? The patience. Doesn't matter how long. The ruthlessness. Now, the longer you keep him around, the husband of your sister, the father of her kids. Do you remember what she told him? And you stood Godfather.
Oh yeah, the sister. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I wanted you to think.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Okay, yeah, I set my claws in you's good.
Yeah.
Johnny says, this is an interesting comment by Johnny. I don't think Carlo was much of a threat. Wasn't his plan to help with Sonny hit?
Right.
Help with Sonny hit when they approached him.
Right. He couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. Well, basically, what Gianni's saying, he was nothing anyway. That's all. Sonny was.
Well, he was a low-level bookie. That's all he was.
Low-level bookie that couldn't fight his killing afternoon.
Yeah. Was
no threat to the family. You know.
Yeah.
Well, remember, going back to when they first get married, the Godfather himself says, Tom says, give him something big. He says, never. Give him a living, but never share the family business with him. He doesn't trust him from the very beginning.
Look at Gianni's next one.
That's actually true. That's actually true.
See Gianni's next comment? It's the Sicilian way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess so.
Absolutely, Gianni. Goddamn right there, brother.
Well, Michael was a strategist. Absolutely. And he also was a Marine, right? So he was a killer. People don't realize, they look at him from the Dartmouth angle, but the guy was trained.
Yes.
Probably more formally trained than any of the other guys.
South Pacific, fighting Japanese island to island. For him to survive, he had to have been okay with killing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the book tells us that he got a Purple Heart because he was wounded.
Yeah.
You don't get that from the movie.
Right.
So the toughness again there.
Yeah, absolutely. Mentally very strong.
So we go back to the scene, and Michael moves the Godfather, moves him to a different room, and makes his way outside. And now he expects at this point, he expects something's going to happen. And now, and this is a little bit of a nuance between the book and the movie. When Enzo, the baker, gets there in the book, Michael's already outside. But in the movie, we see him come walking in, and you get that suspense thrill as if, you know, the killers are coming. The killers are in the hospital, and then you find out it's Enzo. Yeah. But in the book, he's outside. He meets him outside, and the same thing happens. You know, I'm here to visit your father. And Michael says, "Get out of here. And there's going to be trouble." And Enzo says, "If there's trouble, I'm going to stay to help you." And they put on the show as if they're gangsters, right? They stand there, they put their hats down, they put up their collars, and they pretend that they have guns on them. And just as that happens, the Sollozzo's people pull up and see them and drive away. And this is an interesting part of the book, because, you know, we see in the movie there's the lighting of the cigarette, and Enzo's hand is shaking. They make a point, you know, that he's so flustered by this. Like, Enzo's so flustered by this. Michael is not flustered at all by this at all. He's completely calm during all of
stares this. At his hands. They pan to his hands for a couple of seconds.
And his hands are rock solid. Michael's hands are rock solid.
Almost like he can't believe that he's not moving.
Yes. Yep. And they write, and that comes out in the book. The book says that he himself can't believe that his hands are steady in this. So he's awakening. He himself, as a character, is awakening to the things he may not even know about himself. That he has this ability to deal with stress and deal with horrible situations like this, where you're either alive or you're dead. You know, that basically.
Well, see, that's the difference. That's your father in the hospital. Enzo was a visitor. He didn't have no bone in that stuff. Enzo, he was shitting his pants.
And then they also say in the book how Sonny takes care of Enzo for this. Like, he gives him money. He gives him money because he stayed there and helped Michael.
Yeah, I could see that, definitely. Yeah. And he was in the Godfather 3. He's at that party.
Yes,
Michael's,
you're right.
Well, obviously they stayed friends throughout.
And the background to Enzo himself is funny, is, you know, just unique, is that they tell you that he's an Italian immigrant and they're worried about him getting deported. The reason they were worried about him getting deported is because he was actually a prisoner of war of the Italian army. He was fighting for the Italian army and he was a prisoner of war sent back to America. And then with the war being over, they were going to send them back to Italy.
Oh, the American war effort.
Yes.
ALV, Enzo, that's who they were talking about in the beginning with the Godfather at the wedding. They were talking about Enzo.
Exactly.
Bonacera was talking about Enzo.
Do you understand everything? You know everything.
You understand? The bride and the groom, and the bride and the groom.
This big. Whoa.
And that guy, I don't know his name, but that guy was such a character actor in the 70s.
He was in Columbo.
Columbo. Gilligan's Island. He was on Gilligan's Island. He was a million things, a million sitcoms he was on. And he would play either Italians, Spanish, or French. He would play those three different types of characters.
Yeah, I remember him playing a waiter once. Maybe it was Columbo when he played a funeral home owner in Columbo.
Yep.
And he was in like a big character, and he was very good.
Oh yeah.
He played. Did you ever see he was in a few Columbos. He played a bum. I hate to use that word in a Columbo in the junkyard that heard shots.
Oh yeah.
A rhino or something. That's a good word. I hate that word, bum. But
Yep.
He was great though.
Good stuff.
So I think Michael became his father's son at that hospital. I think, and there was it's kind of like in for a dollar and for. I think that you're in the middle of the ocean now, and I always thought, you're teaching someone to swim. if you're swimming, you're always worried about what's under you, right? But if you keep on swimming, you don't have to worry about how deep the water is. And I think that's what it was with him. I think he felt, well, now I'm in it.
Yeah.
And he really believed that his family was going to get wiped out. So I really do believe that he thought that everyone was going to get wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he had to save the family.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And that was the picture. And basically that was the picture that Tom kept painting, is that, like all the families will line up against us. That was the picture he painted for everyone.
Right.
And it was a true belief of his, because Tom was always in favor of the deal with Sollozzo because of the reality of it. He figured it's something that had to be done. He had to do it.
Yeah. I also thought that when it was interesting when Tom said, if you're not a wartime consigliere, and he gets killed on his watch as a consigliere.
Right.
Should Hagen have seen that coming?
Well, that scene is another another question. The way they set that up in the movie, I didn't like it because it's not reasonable. He's so far away when he gets killed. Where were those guys that were right behind him in the Tom sends people right after him.
Field. They filmed that at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn. They made that toll booth. But we never saw those cars, and all of a sudden they're right there.
Yeah. Yep.
I noticed one thing. I look like I'm the Northern Sicilian, and you guys are the Eastern Sicilians. How come I'm so damn dark compared to you guys?
Well, you're in a dark room all the time. You have no.
I got the lights on over here. I mean, I know I'm in the sun all the time. Jesus Christ! Look at me. I'm looking at you guys. I'm like, I look orange over here.
Listen, I also have Russian genes in me. I'm not 100% Italian, so that's where my white comes from.
You know what genes I have in me, so I can't forget it.
All right. So then, as soon as that car, and it's momentarily, right? As soon as that car goes away, the police arrive. So that they were coming there. Now, and this is something they were coming there to find the Don murdered. Basically, that was because that was part of the plan, right? These guys go kill the Don. The police arrive and document everything. Basically, that's what it was, because there's not enough time for them to call as they're leaving to go to a phone and call the police. The police were already coming, which sets up the whole thing about how we know that they were in on it. They were part of Sollozzo's pay thing, the pay chain here. They were getting money for this. And so the cops pull up and they immediately grab Michael. Enzo scoots away and Michael's grabbed. And then we go through this famous scene where, and let me show you. I'm not going to play anything because I'll get blocked or anything. But let me see if I can show you this.
Get down here.
Where is this?
1 second.
It's not coming through here. I wanted to show you. Well, anyway, it's a pic. Here it is. Let's see if this works. This famous picture right here.
Oh,
look at that.
That face.
that face. He goes, I love to punch that face. Go ahead.
I remember every time my father would watch this, he'd say, that dirty Irish son of a... Every time.
Don't even go there. That disgrazia potato. Oh. You had to open up. My mother right now would pull our hair. Okay. Don't start with that scene. Your father made. Oh, my father used to open up right there. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, no. I'm just the same. It was the same thing. Same thing in my house every time.
And my grandfather would encourage him. Okay.
But it sets up the whole. Look, it sets up the whole dynamic, the cultural dynamic that we kind of grew up with, right?
Absolutely.
The Irish were the antithesis of Italians. Like they they had an issue with Italians coming to America. There's no question about it. Not all of them, but a majority of them. And this was the cultural interaction. The cops were the Irish. This is what it was at the time.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was it. That was the bottom line there, and like they were both tough construction working nationalities.
Mm-hmm.
One were cops and the other were street guys in that vernacular.
Right.
So, there's nothing. They were all hardworking, people. One went to this, the other, don't get me wrong. You got your Irish gangsters out. Don't get me wrong.
Of course. Absolutely. Of course,
everybody has them, So
Irish gangsters, Jewish gangsters,
they all have them.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Yes, Bambi. I'm just answering Bambi. She asked if I'd marry her.
Oh boy!
You have a copy of the Godfather?
Oh. You're gonna have to move out to Iowa, though, Vinny. You're gonna have to go out to Iowa. Could you
imagine this?
With Bambi, she'll put up with me 10 minutes. They'll find me in a cornfield.
Green Acres is the place to be. Vinny would be in the, Oh,
my legs would be sticking out of me head first. So,
could you see Vinny in overalls? No. I can't with the straw hat. That'd be it, Vinny.
Yeah,
he would run
with my Rolex watch.
Yeah, with your Rolex and gold chain on, that would be it.
Right. Yeah, that scene, and it's funny, Anthony. Like you say, people don't normally go to that scene if you're thinking about. If you ask someone, no one will say that's their favorite. But that is the scene that depicts when Michael really decides, hey, I'm here now.
Yeah. Right.
And it's interesting. And he must have surprised the shit out of Sonny and everybody, like, wow, you handled this great. And you can see also when he says, I'm with you now, Pop, you see Corleone starts to cry.
Yes.
Tears come down. You don't see a lot of them, but it's kind of like you wonder, like, wow. Mm-hmm. He came back after all. He's not. His loyalty was to America.
Yes,
and now his loyalty is back to his family. That's how I always.
And there was a deleted scene when they're in that same hospital when Jenko, the consigliere, is dying, and the Don brings all his sons there. There's a scene between Michael and the Don in the hallway where Michael is actually belligerent to his father. He's like confrontational and belligerent towards him.
Right. Yeah, near the water cooler.
Yes.
And I guess that's where they got that he stood up to his father. Where the others were kind of cowtail, Michael was very much like his father.
Right.
But you see that as it goes. But he was not nearly as endearing. He was much more tactical. He wasn't as family oriented. Like, he shut down.
Yes.
You can see throughout the movie, he just leaves this. It's almost like him and everyone else. He's very detached, very cold. You never see him laugh. You really never see him laugh. There was a scene that was out of The Godfather 2 they took out again, where his niece comes to ask for his permission to marry, and he laughs and he smiles.
Yes, he smiles and kind of laughs a little. Yes.
But you never. I guess again, Anthony, like they want him detached. They want you to see a different Michael than the Michael where he laughed with Kay in the beginning. They don't want that guy there anymore. That guy's gone. This is Michael now, not that guy.
You got to remember though, that was Mike pre-Apollonia too, with Kay. Then he went to Sicily. That's where he became this, guys. Sorry, when he came back to America, he was hungering for Apollonia. That family, that kids, that he was hungering for that. First closest thing was Kay. And we all know what happened when he tried to do it there. So he was looking for Apollonia type of woman, home, no question.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that whole
nothing in your face, but he got the complete
whole
opposite when he came to America.
Adam came up with a good point too. Michael considered himself a hero and considered his father a murderer and a thug. And that's very true. Michael did not look favorably upon that stuff. And that's why when he started to see the police corrupt and everything, that's why I think he said to Kay, who's fooling who? businessmen are corrupt too. They kill people.
Who's being naive? Who's being naive now, Kay?
That's what I think. He started changing and realized, hey, I've been looking at this Pollyanna view of America. When no, it's kind of like us. They just have licenses to do it. And I think it's brilliantly portrayed, and how they systematically go through the change where you see Michael really become another person.
Yes.
Really.
Absolutely.
Before your eyes.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. No doubt.
You're right, Vin. You're right. I mean, he went through it all. I mean, just look at the movie. He went through it all. And then he came back, and he knew it. As soon as he stepped back to New York out of Sicily, he knew exactly what he was set forth to do.
Absolutely.
And when you're thinking, and when you go back to the hospital scene, when he's confronted by McCluskey, he has no fear of McCluskey whatsoever. He immediately, what is the Turk paying you to set up my father? Immediately comes out of his mouth without even nothing. And they also make a point in the book of saying that he's not moved, or even he doesn't even get emotional by McCluskey's racial terms of Guinea and all this other stuff. Like it rolls off of him. He doesn't react to it at all. His reaction to McCluskey was strictly because his father was in danger, and this was an enemy of his father. That was it right then and there.
And you remember what McCluskey said? The first thing, you smart mouth, Ivory. He said something like that. You smart mouth. Like he knew he was college educated.
You punk. Who are you to tell me my business?
Yes, punk.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you said, Ant, that he really put it in a business perspective at that point, right? And then when he's going to murder him, he says it's strictly business, it's not personal.
Yes.
So it's interesting that he said that after acting like that at the hospital. Right. So he knew the difference, and he could separate business and personal, and that was a good point.
Well, Sonny immediately thinks this is all because he gets knocked in the jaw. He gets his jaw broken by McCluskey. He thinks that Michael wants to kill McCluskey because of that, but it's not. That's not the reason. It's because Michael sees it as the only way to protect his father, because he knows that the father has to die. If Sollozzo wants to survive, he's committed himself. He has to make sure the Godfather's dead. That's the bottom line. And Michael sees that. It takes everybody else a while to see that, but Michael sees it immediately and realizes this has to be done.
Now, in the book, wasn't Barzini took over the family from the boss that he killed, but he had a failed attempt on Vito. Barzini was one of the hitters that 10 years before tried to kill Vito and missed.
Right, because
so he was never a fan of Vito.
No. Sonny says, we've been through this before. Mom's been through this before, and so have I. And he's referring to that about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And Michael was kind of sheltered from that because he was younger. Yeah. So Michael wasn't really into that. Like he didn't know a lot about that.
Right.
But that's a good point. Barzini gets it right. Barzini gets in. He doesn't build his own family. He takes over a family.
He was in on a failed attempt to kill Vito Corleone 10 years before. Mm-hmm. So he was never Vito Corleone's friend.
Right.
Yeah. He was still in school when that was happening.
Yeah.
Well, Michael was, I think, at that hospital scene, probably about 26, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
26
a little younger.
Because he was 38 and 58, I think, when they go to The Godfather 2. That was right, 56, right? 46? Yeah. So he's a young man. I guess he got out of college.
Yeah.
And went into the Army for 4 years, right? And
he enlists, right? He enlists in Pearl Harbor. He enlists right after Pearl Harbor. As we see that scene at the end of Godfather 2, where he says, I enlisted today, so.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. On Pop's birthday.
Yeah. And they didn't know it was Pop's birthday.
You remember?
They didn't know it was Pop's birthday.
And I remember when Sonny Corleone says, encourage him to Fredo.
Encourage him. Yeah, shut up. Encourage him.
Oh, that's great, Mikey.
That's great, Mikey. Good job.
You see when he says, we have plans for your future, my future.
Oh.
When his father goes, my future.
My future.
Yeah, he was so defiant with his father. He loved his father, but I don't think he agreed.
Right. You talk to my father about my future.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
There was a lot of resistance from Michael. You could tell when he was
Absolutely.
a kid. Yep, you're right, Ben.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And you wonder why you would think that Don Corleone would know that for the securing of the family, Michael would be the one that you'd want to groom. So I guess Michael was dead set against all this because
Yep.
he would be the one you'd want to groom to be the successor.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So Michael just
But you
probably
notice-
said no and ran away and ran to the army.
Every son was different.
Yeah, and I
every
think that's why he ran to the army.
Yep. Every son was different in every way. Sonny was different than every one of them. Fredo was, you know, the ugly duckling. Michael was the college. Everyone was different to a, you know, extreme.
Yeah. Tom Hayden.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he was groomed. He was groomed to be the, you know, and the Godfather says this. I thought Senator Corleone, Governor Corleone. That's what he was groomed for. He was groomed to be that. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yep. Ben,
yeah. Because he thought he had the smarts for it, probably. Obviously, he was the brightest of them all.
Right.
Well, Joe College. They called him Joe College.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe College
yes.
over here.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, Joe College.
Now,
we got a couple Joe Colleges over here. That's why it rings.
Now, a couple of factors from the book here. In the movie, we see Tom Hagen shows up at the hospital. That doesn't happen in the book. What there's an attorney there, but it's not Tom Hagen. It's one of Clemenza's defense attorneys that shows up there. That's all they describe him as, one of Clemenza's attorneys. Really? And they get the private detectives to come in. And here's the other thing: when McCluskey says, "Phil, take him in. Phil, lock him up." Yeah. Phil is on the Godfather's payroll. Phil is the detective that called in to Sonny to tell him that the Godfather had been hit.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he tries to interfere. Look, he's clean, Captain. He's a war hero. What are we going to arrest him for? You know, but he is on the Godfather's payroll, the Corleone payroll.
Right.
Now, and this is the most interesting thing about the book. The book says that McCluskey himself was on the Corleone payroll at one point, but he was greedy and unreliable, and they cut him off. Cut him off.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's why you're right, Anthony. That's coming back to me. That's why he didn't like him so much either.
That's why he hated the Corleones, because they cut him off.
Wow.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Also, I remember, like, Al Neri is the Luca Brasi to Michael, and Al Neri was a police officer.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was a police officer who killed, what was it, his sister's husband, because he was beating the hell out of her. And Al Neri's father went way back with Vito and asked for help, and that's how they got Al Neri out of. He wasn't a cop anymore. He did a few months in jail, I think.
Right.
But that's how he had the police suit when he killed Barzini in Godfather 2. He was dressed because that was his old police uniform.
Right. Right. Yep.
Okay, here's one for you guys. Who brought Rocco in?
I don't know. Who did? Clemenza?
Hang on.
Rocco.
Remember Rocco, the bodyguard?
Yes.
He went after Hyman. Who brought him in? Think about it.
Well, Paulie
You were right. You were right. Clemenza.
Yeah.
Clemenza.
He was one of Clemenza's young guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Rocco was in the car when they killed Paulie. Rocco's the guy that kills Paulie. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, you got it.
You know what's interesting, too? Do you think that Sonny wasn't trusting of Clemenza originally because Paulie Gatto was the guy that set up the old man, and Clemenza brought Gatto in?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that was his guy he was grooming.
Yeah.
So I guess you would think maybe Clemenza was in on it.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood in Godfather 2. I always thought that when he sent Rocco Lapone to kill Hyman Roth, that was a suicide mission.
Oh, yeah.
I always thought that listen, he's head of security. They almost killed me and my wife. Whose fault is that? So I was surprised Rocco wasn't whacked for that. So I think Rocco's deal was, you try to kill him, that's your penalty. You get out, fine. If not, it's a suicide mission. That's why I always thought that he was chosen. Because Neary and Rocco, I don't know if it was the book, Anthony, they say that Tom Hagen, while going through the books, realized those two guys are on a separate payroll for Michael Corleone. They're his assassins.
Yes.
Those two are Michael's assassins.
Yes, Tom Hagen brings that up. He brings that up and says, I'm not stupid. I noticed that they're on a separate payroll. They're not in Clemenza or Tessio's lines.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
They're Michael's guys. They're his personal bulldogs.
Oh, what happened to Thendu here? We lost him.
That's not good. That's interesting. There were so many little things that after you watch, you say, oh, yeah, like I never knew that with Phil, that he was the inside guy. Only
I'm going to put the link back in there in case you could jump back in.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I got that was from the book. I mean, and the whole purpose behind me doing these shows is I want people to read the book, because the book is so much more. There's so much more to the book. It's it's really, and it's not a hard read either. It's an easy read. Yeah. I mean, you could go through that and you get pulled into the book. You don't want to put it down. You start reading. You keep reading and reading and reading.
Did you ever read the other books that came out that were not officially?
That were not. Yeah, no, I have never read those. No.
Well, one of them came. It fills in from 58 until 79.
Oh, really?
Fredo supposedly was gay.
Oh, jeez. Really?
And, yeah, and how they tried to kill, I think, Fredo in a boat or something. Yeah, it was interesting, but I don't like that. I just go by the basics. See, I always thought The Godfather was Mario Puzo's story. The Godfather 2 was Francis Ford Coppola's story. Mm-hmm. It was more about a family. Like, you didn't see any murders in The Godfather. There were no murders. You didn't see any.
Right.
It was more the rise and fall of a family.
Yes. You're right. You're right. They don't show you any interworking street crime at all. There's none of that.
You're only looking at captains and bosses. Yeah. You don't see any of the low-level guys committing crimes.
Wait, hold on. Thendu. I'm backstage. I can't let you in, buddy. I'm trying to let you in. I'm gonna kick you. If for some reason it says device not connected, so I'm gonna kick you from studio and you try to come in again. Let me just do this once more time. So it's there. All right. I don't know what's going on here.
Yes, Adam. Yeah, they all tried it out for each other's roles. I know that. They originally wanted George C. Scott for that role, and they wanted Robert Redford, but Redford was signed on to do The Way We Were. But they wanted Robert Redford originally.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Interesting.
Robert Redford. They wanted a Northern Italian. And Mickey Rooney, they offered the Tom Hagen's role.
Oh, wow.
Turned it down. But they wanted George C. Scott originally.
For The Godfather.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Redford they wanted, and he was signed. Mm-hmm. And interesting, like they all tried for every part. Robert Finaro from The Sopranos was telling me that a lot of times you have a movie, Scorsese does it a lot, where you'll have guys reading for each other's parts just to get the dynamic for the reader, for the director to see, like, oh, maybe he should be more like that. Like, they actually look at the actors' performances to maybe think, maybe I'm wrong. That's what they do.
There we go. Right. I don't know what happened there.
I fell off. It froze. My usual freezing took place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I had heard, Anthony, I don't know if you ever heard this, because I'm a sick screw up who lays in bed reading Godfather and Beatle books all day. It's true. That originally Joey Zaza would have been Willie Chichi.
Really? Really?
They said,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
They said that would have been his part.
Wow.
I guess Michael would have forgiven him, but he really didn't give anything to that committee. But I guess, that would have been his. He would have taken over New York because of Patanjali. He was Patanjali's right-hand man.
Yeah.
So he would have been to take over all that stuff.
I tell you, that wouldn't make. I don't know if I would.
Well,
I would like. I mean,
though, how could Michael allow that if he testified?
yeah.
But then again, Michael okayed Joey Zaza because
he was out, right? He's basically out. All he at that point is he's just rubber stamping things, right? He's like,
yeah, but they said, the commission and you approved. So Michael must have approved Joey Zaza for that position originally. So Joey Zaza must have really gone off the reservation because originally Michael approved for Zaza to run New York.
Yeah.
He probably just went crazy with it. Started killing people and drugs and all that stuff.
And I thought Montagna did a good job. Montagna, I think he did a great job with that role. I really liked him in that role.
Yeah.
He
did. A couple of things though that like when Connie's there and he goes to Andy Garcia. Well, you could have called the police. What Godfather's going to tell a guy to call the police?
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
I don't care how straight you're trying to go.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. But I guess they never put roles in there, and they never put lines that they don't believe in. And I guess he wanted to show how now white bread Pacino was. You call the police. You used it. He just didn't want any part of that anymore.
Yeah.
Really didn't.
I mean, that's another transformation of Michael, right? He's trying to get back to what he was 50 years ago,
right?
40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, he's going through that end of the, he retired. He's going through all that at that time. He's
absolutely
everything is haunting him. Everything's haunting him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's in 3, he's dealing with demons, personal demons the whole time. That's basically the whole movie. Him dealing with.
The best part of that movie is you can see when he's on the steps crying and screaming.
Yeah.
Even Kay and Talia, they look at him like
they're horrified. Yeah, they're horrified.
That's not him. That's a lifetime.
Yep.
Of what this has done to him.
Yeah.
Because they even looked at him and said, like, no one expected him to be that outward with the emotion. Because he was always sealed off. That was just 50 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, Dean.
That was lifetime of disgust coming out of him right there. Just take me away. Just take me right there.
Well, he caused a lot. Look, he caused Apollonia, young kid's death. So because of his involvement, he caused a lot of death too.
He kills his brother, which is the biggest demon he has, right? That's the biggest demon that he carries with him.
How do you kill your brother?
And that's never done that, right, Anthony?
Absolutely. That's the thing that's the biggest flaw to me is that like I would never see that happening. I would never see that happening.
Never.
Anybody else but your brother, you would not do that to your brother. You can't trust him. Fine, I get it. You can't trust him, but he's out of the business. He's out. He's not a threat anymore. He's done.
Shelful.
But when I think he decided to do that, I'm probably reaching here. If you notice, he's talking to him, and then when he says anything else, he says, "Yeah, the prosecutor Roth's got him in his pocket." Yeah. You've just been talking to him for 15 minutes. You've known this for weeks before, and now you tell me this?
Yeah.
And I think at that point he said, "This guy is so stupid. He's going to get us killed. I don't care what he'll do. He'll get us killed."
It also demonstrates how in-depth knowledge he had about the plots. I mean, for him to know that, think about it. That means that he'd have to be in on discussions where that was talked about, right? It's not just, his theory or like his story was, look, they were going to give me some money, and I was just supposed to help you be weaker in the negotiations with Roth. That was his story. But if that's the case, how does he know about the attorney, the Senate attorney? How would he know that stuff?
Any brother that after he almost got killed, Michael, any brother would have said, "Listen, this is what happened."
Yeah.
And I don't think Michael would have killed him at that point.
Yeah.
And also, I never met Hyman Roth. or John. Well,
Right.
Hyman Roth, Mo Green is Hyman Roth's guy. You've been out there for 10 years. You never met Hyman Roth? When Roth and Green is Roth's guy. It's an impossibility. So and he knew he'd take over the family. Got to remember, he's the one that becomes the godfather if Michael goes.
Right. Right.
So I don't believe I believe he thought that Michael was going to get killed. I thought he was ragely jealous. I think he thought that was his position. It should have been anyway, because he always said, "Pop passed me over." I think he always was jealous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you got to remember, don't think any of the enemies and everything. They knew Fredo was weak-minded.
Yes.
Absolutely.
They're alone. These top guys are going to use that. They're going to bring him in a discussion. They're going to let him hear that. They know he feels important.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Now, they know he's not going to go back and hurt his family and tell his family this too. That's how weak-minded Fredo was. You could have used and abused him in every which way.
Yeah.
So he was right. He was basically, he should have been shelved, put in the corner immediately.
Yep.
But they were trying to carry, help him and help him. And there's no helping a guy with a weak mind like that in a business like this.
Sitting at that table when they had banana daiquiri. First time I saw him smile the whole movie. How much do you think he thought it was Fredo at that point, or do you really don't? He really didn't know.
Well, you see the scene when they're in the strip club where, or the sex club, where you see the look on Michael's face when it's revealed to him. That's where it dawns on him.
So he's surprised.
Right. He's like surprised, old man Roth would never come here, and you see it kind of like drain out of Michael, like, oh.
But that day when they had the drink, he said, "Have you? Maybe I don't know if you've ever met them, Hyman Roth."
Oh yeah, I don't know them. Yeah.
So it's almost like he was baiting him. So it's almost like he didn't know, he wasn't sure, and then he tried to convince himself it wasn't. But why would you ask those questions?
That's true. Yeah, right. The way he asks them too is suspect. Like the way he's, Hyman Roth, Johnny Ola, I see what you're saying.
Well, it's like hearing your diagnosis, you have something and you're expecting God forbid, and then when they pass, it's like, oh my God, it's like such a shock.
Yeah.
I think he was praying he was wrong,
but
he wasn't. That's what I think happened. Yeah.
Yep.
And did you notice he was talking to him like a little kid, like a younger brother? Fredo, by any chance, did you talk to these people? You know what I mean? You got to look at that, as a man, you got to look at that man talking, and Fredo was all that. Michael was like, hey, baby brother, did they hurt you, or did they tell you anything that I should know? See, Michael already knew he was talking, to nothing, but he had to just try, because it was his brother, to get something out of Fredo.
Anthony, you're right though with that, where he had to be in on a lot of discussions, Fredo, with that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Which means
they were sending them. They were sending them to the casinos to run the casinos and everything.
Right. Well, that was the thing too, and I always thought that was interesting, where they went to kill Marlon Brando's character because he didn't want to get involved in the drugs. But Michael, who gave a fair offer to Mo Green, isn't that the same thing? The other families share in on that money with the casino. So if Mo Green's not doing well, and he feels, because they banked Mo Green when Fredo went out there, the Corleones banked that casino.
Yeah.
So he's giving a fair offer but meanwhile, you're telling Don Corleone, you're not a friend if you don't share this. You know what I mean? It was kind of the same thing if you think about it.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
So I want to get back to the hospital scene and kind of close that out. So this is another factor I wanted to share. They also say in the book that McCluskey was getting he was to get a piece of the drug action, from a direct piece of the drug act. He wasn't just being paid off. He was getting a percentage of the drug action from Sollozzo. So that really motivates him to be solidly in Sollozzo's corner. He has he has everything to lose if Sollozzo loses, right? So to me that put a lot more perspective in it, because this is a police captain that's going out on a limb, where he knows the Corleones have the newspaper protection, the political protection. He's going out on, it has to be something big for him to go out on a limb like this. He's going to get attacked. He's going to have to deal with a lot of stuff. So that explained it to me. Sollozzo promises a percentage of the heroin money to McCluskey, which is major to do that to a cop. That solidifies him as the protector for Sollozzo.
It looked a little like toward that time they had lost a lot of juice, the Corleone family. It seemed like McCluskey and them thought that the other families were going to now ascend, and that the Corleone family was done. It seemed like that. We didn't see that in the movie. We still thought they were the big.
Yeah.
But it seemed like people around that were going against them thought that the Corleone's reign has ended, and that the drugs, all the families would line up against the Corleones. We're going to get on that side.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like.
If you think about the dynamics of the families from what we know, the D'Italias were at the bottom of the barrel. They were prostitute pimps. That's all they were. That's all they controlled. The drugs were going to make them real deal. That was going to make them big. That was going to make them big. So they were fully committed to that. That's what they were going to do. They hook up with Sollozzo. This is going to make them a major player in the world. Bozzini had a grudge against the Godfather, as we said, to begin with, and they don't explain why Bozzini has so much sway on the commission. I don't understand.
His family was almost as big as the Corleone family. The only difference was he had the politicians, Corleone. Okay. That was the only difference. And because you could see during that meeting when Corleone comes out of the sickbed that Tattaglia keeps on looking at Bozzini, everything that's said.
Yeah.
Keeps on looking. It's like he was talking for Bozzini. Because Tattaglia, you're right, he was not. Tattaglia was an idiot. So Bozzini was running his head.
Right.
You can see it. And Bozzini all along was trying to blame Bozzini. I think he wanted Bozzini, Tattaglia.
Yes.
They wanted Corleone to think of Tattaglia. So Tattaglia wasn't too bright either.
Right.
But yeah, I think the Bozzini family I read was almost as big.
Okay.
But he had the political connections.
And Sonny never picks up on this, right? Sonny's focused on Sollozzo and the D'Italias. He never thinks of Bozzini ever. Never. And because of that, he gets outfoxed, in the Godfather's world and words. He outfoxed them.
But he didn't do terribly. I'll tell you, he was going against seasoned bosses, and that war was going on for a year, and he was holding his own.
Yeah. Right.
He was holding his own against these bosses. So he wasn't doing terrible. He ended up, his temper got him killed, which they knew. They knew what his temper.
That was his weakness. Weakness.
And everyone knew it.
Yeah.
Everyone knew
he was a loose cannon.
Really was.
And the end of that scene, and the end where we're going to end our discussion about the scenes with this part where it ends with Michael coming back from the hospital and he sees all new people at the compound. And why is that? We hit Bruno D'Italia at 4:00 this morning, and they actually kill Bruno Jr. Bruno Jr. gets killed. So that's a big success for Sonny. He takes out the son of the Don of that family.
Yeah. He couldn't stand Bruno D'Italia.
No.
Were they in hiding at this point? Were the Dons kind of in hiding at this point during this war? Were you really couldn't find them?
Yeah.
I would, because it's surprising that you were able to hit D'Italia.
Yeah.
Right.
You would think that they were on the lam, these guys. You're right. That would be a big coup if you were able to hit him when everybody's hiding.
Right.
Yeah. That was. Yeah.
Remember, he was a pimp.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. D'Italia's a pimp.
D'Italia's a pimp.
Yeah. Yep.
One of the best lines was though, you smacked my brother around? Yeah. I can't wait just two at a time. Please couldn't get a drink at the bar. What's wrong with you?
Oh.
That was great. And another thing, do you remember in 2 when Senator Geary, when he said, let's just say you'll pay me the money to Corleone about and he takes the little toy cannon on the desk,
turns it towards him.
Points it toward him.
Turns it.
Yeah.
That's a very big point there.
Mm-hmm.
Michael's not used to getting threatened.
Right.
No.
And
And he's just telling them bang. He's just pointing the cannon and going bang back at you.
But meanwhile, when they set him up, Fredo was a very big part of that.
Yes.
It was his club. So he did trust Fredo for certain things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's the whole Fredo thing is it's strange in the sense that they portray him as a total dimwit at times, yet he is successfully does tasks. He successfully runs clubs. He successfully establishes the Corleones in Nevada. He does all these things, but at the same time, he's this, congratulations, Mikey. At the same, it's just like this two sides to him, two sides to Fredo.
Well, that's why when he says, you send me on errands, go to the airport, I think Frank Patangeli really was Michael's underboss. Think about it. I think Patangeli. I think Fredo had the title.
Yeah.
But I think Patangeli was really the underboss. If you're doing underboss business, Fredo's not meeting them. Patangeli is.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling they shut him up, and that's why he was so upset. Because he wasn't doing underboss tasks, Fredo. No way. He's picking people up at the airport. No, I think Patangeli was the underboss.
Yeah.
Maybe not officially, but I think he.
Well, when they moved to Nevada, they basically leave everything to Patangeli, right? Or Clemenza, and Clemenza dies, and Patangeli takes over. So they leave, and that is operating as kind of like a satellite of the Corleones, because the Corleones are all focused on Nevada. They don't really focus on New York.
It's under their flag.
Yeah. It's kind of like a subsidiary. If it was a corporation, that would be a subsidiary in New York at that point, owned by them, but they're running their own thing.
Big Bones, you trying to tell me something? Angry?
What's Big Bones doing?
No, I think Sonny was too hangry all the time. He said
hangry. Yeah, that was supposedly a big joke. In the book.
Well, that's what they were accusing me of, being hangry all week. So I was asking them.
It's funny.
That's too funny, is right, man. Yeah. So and then and basically that scene ends when he comes back, and then we get the final revelation of where Michael is, because Michael basically reveals his new personality, and everyone is shocked, right? It's Sonny, it's the two capos, Tessio and Clemenza, and Tom Hagen. And when he proposes, I'm going to take care of this, I will be the person that goes and kills them, they're all, first of all, they all laugh. And in the book, there's a vicious reaction from Michael to that. Like he gets angry. You don't see that in the movie, but he gets angry and like stands up and how dare you, dismiss me with laughter, so to speak. But it's the final transformation of the personality, I think. With all he's gone through in that short period of time, he's committing to killing someone. He's going to protect the family by doing it, and he knows the consequences. He knows he has to leave the country. He knows that his plans with Kay are done. That's it, and that future's gone at that point. The minute he's going to kill those two men, he's done. It's a totally new situation for him.
Right.
Did you think that Tom Hagen would give a little more resistance, considering that Hagen and Don Vito had conversations endlessly about Michael's future? So for Tom to really not protest about him doing this, because Tom kind of said Mike, and then said, well, yeah, it might work. Like it kind of like he should have said, listen, your dad does not want him involved in this.
Yeah.
But it seemed like Tom gave up a little too quick, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I guess at that point he thought the family was in danger, though, Tom.
Probably. Well, I think Hagen at that point is scared to death because of what Sonny is capable of. He thinks Sonny's going to run the family into the ground on this vendetta. Right. It's going to be, they're all going to, we can't, in that scene when they're in the hallway together, and Sonny says, I'm going to end up by killing that old bastard. He says, we can't, Hagen's response is, we can't handle this. We have an overhead. The other families don't have the overhead. We can't handle this.
Right.
They can't get in another war. They can't get in another war, too.
So I think it's, Hagen being the practical thinker, needs whatever's going to end this as quickly as possible. If Michael's going to be able the way to do it, we got to go and do it. We got to do it.
Yep,
so.
Yeah, it was just a great scene heading in from the hospital. There, you saw the transformation. Like at the hospital, he turned into a Corleone.
Yes, without a doubt.
He really did.
No turning back from that. No turning back.
And you could see in bed
the whole movie
when they told Don Vito that Michael was the one that killed. You see his
You see his face. Yeah. Leave me alone. I want to be alone. I'm going to be alone now.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
His worst fear.
Mm-hmm.
That Michael would get hooked up in this.
And that's like exactly. And that right there, that little thing right there, that little scene right there, and that reaction, Brando's reaction there, goes to the heart of this, of this whole drama, this whole saga is a father's love for it. There's no question Michael is his favorite. Michael is his Michael was his future. He saw Michael as the future. Like this is where he came to this country an orphan. He had to go to crime. He had to go to crime to survive. But he doesn't want that. He's a man of honor. He wants his children to be better than he is. He couldn't do it. Sonny had to be with the family. Fredo is Fredo. Michael is his only hope to bring the family out of where he came from, right? And when he realizes that that's gone, he knows it. The fact that Michael did this, that's over and done with. There is going to be no Senator Corleone. There's going to be no Governor Corleone. It's not going to happen, and that's
Godfather Corleone.
Yeah, that is the meat of the drama here, right? It's the life force taken out of him because that's all he wanted. That's all he really wanted.
I remember when Sollozzo said, Tom's the Don is slipping. Did you see him slipping up until that meeting?
No.
I guess someone being around him not to protect him. Slipping meaning we would have never got to him.
Yeah, being too comfortable and
too comfortable. Yep. That's it.
Yeah. And I think that's what Sollozzo meant. Sollozzo meant like that he was slipping in that he was untouchable before. Like you could never get near him. Now they were able to pay off Paulie and got there,
Right. Any slip on the street is big to your opponent. Any slip on the street, Benny. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's kind of like a scene. When you slip on a street with something, it's like what we're discussing. You get 20 things out of that, Thindo.
Goddamn right,
man. You make one move.
Yep.
It's not the move you made. It's everything around that move that I can now anticipate what you'll do. And that's, I read you. You just told me a lot by one thing. And that's what happened there. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Everything is watched. Everything is spotted on the street when you do something. Or you slip, I'm saying,
What do you think was Michael's biggest mistake?
I didn't hear that. What was that, Ben?
What do you think Michael's biggest mistake was?
Was it Fredo?
I think that had the biggest impact on him for the rest of his life. From that angle. It tortured him.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, it's funny. In the scene in Washington, he tells Kay, "You'll never take my kids." And then he let her go with the kids. I think he realized from that moment after saying that my kids could get killed here. So I think he gave her the kids to go to New York.
Yeah.
Because he said, "You'll never take my kids." So he wanted them. And then all of a sudden, whitey about face. Because I think he felt this is going to start happening. This is my life. People, I'm going to be a target now. And like Kay almost got killed in the bedroom. What happens if it's one of my kids? And I think that he kind of stopped his world. When they left, he was no longer. It was amazing how they showed you throughout the movie that you're not even looking at the same person.
Mm-hmm.
He changed so much.
Yeah.
And we get the chance to see every bit of it.
And I think as much as Michael, went against his father in his younger ages, he wanted to be his father ultimately, and he couldn't be because his family, the family, Kay left him. Kay left him. He didn't have that family that he wanted so much. So that to him, he's dealing with that. And then he has the death of his brother. I mean, he's got so many demons in him of regrets and failures from his eyes that he is what he is at the end there. It's just
you guys are giving me the willies now. Okay.
I thought that scene also when he's sitting in the chair with the mother and he says to the mother, "Can you ever lose your family?"
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, no, your family. I never knew which one he was talking about.
Yep.
I think he meant his mob family.
I think he meant his family, because at that point, everything was getting crushed on him. Yeah. So when you got to go to your mother and ask her, "Ma, could you have?" You're not going to ask your mother about the mob family. She's going
no. Oh, yeah, but the mother.
He asked her, "Ma, could you lose your family?" Now, you got to remember, at that point, there was no divorce in Sicilian marriages. There was none of that. So Michael was coming up to the 60s and 70s now, where a lot of stuff was taking place and happening. Informants were coming in. This was happening. Yeah. Trust wasn't there anymore. So he was really looking at that ballpark of it all.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's a very good point.
You got to look at that. All that coming in at that point.
Yeah, he was just a miserable, isolated person.
Listen, man, I get it. Man, like I said, you guys are giving me the willies there. Because when you do look back at life like that, and I mean, sometimes when you're younger, you see it in the movies.
Yeah.
It has meaning. Then later on in life, and now we're talking about it like this,
It's you now. You look back at your life.
It's horrible.
Me too. I look back at that, and the funniest thing, and it's not a Godfather, but the thing that I remember more, my father died, my mother died, my sisters died, is when after my arrest, 2 years later, someone was banging at the door at 6 a.m. and my son must have PTSD. He thought it was the cops. To this day, that haunts me. Haunts me. He doesn't do it anymore, but it haunts me. So you get a memory that might not be, someone else could say, "Oh, that's not so bad. How come you can't let it go?" But we're all different.
Yeah.
So we can't let certain things go, no matter what they are. And the thing is, we're the age now that we've done so much that there is a lot to pick from now of what we may have regretted. That's
Ben, don't even start. Do yourself a favor. Don't even start thinking about that. Oh my God.
Dindo's gonna have me whacked today. I'm gonna see a dog at my door.
Brooklyn man mauled by pit bull. That's going to be the headlines tomorrow.
Stop.
News on Stink Show at 7 a.m.
I'll be like this after the show.
Guys, I got to run. I have it.
Well, thank you. Listen, Vinny, thank you so much for jumping on and being a part of today's conversation.
Tonight, 9 p.m., I'm doing a Soprano. Tonight.
Oh, yes.
Tonight, on Sunday night at 9 o'clock, because that's when it was on HBO, I'm doing the pilot. Then every Sunday night at 9 o'clock, we're going to cover 2 episodes. We're starting with the pilot. We're going to go all the way through the series. You guys are welcome to come on anytime.
I'll be there tonight, Ben. I'll come and see you tonight for sure.
I'd love you to say hi. Thank you, Anthony.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Benny.
Guys.
Benny, thank you so much.
I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, ALV.
All right, listen. Thank you, Dean Do, as always. We couldn't do this without you. I couldn't do it without you, so I appreciate it. And thank everyone in the chat. Thank you guys for being a part of this.
Thank you, everyone.
We're going to continue. We'll continue to do this as we go through everything. We'll take it step by step, and we'll keep it going. And tune into Vinny's show. Check out his Soprano stuff. It sounds pretty cool to me. It sounds like it's a lot of fun. I have to go back and watch some of those episodes. It's been such a while since I've watched.
I never even watched it, so I'm in trouble with the Sopranos. Oh, yeah.
That's good stuff,
right.
though. It's good stuff.
Be good. Keep in touch.
All
Love
right.
you,
Thank you,
ALV.
Dinu. Thanks, everyone.
my
Have a
man.
good, blessed afternoon. Thank you, as always, for watching. Please hit the like button on the way out. God bless. And have a great Sunday afternoon. Bye-bye.